I'm sure you've heard of expats or expatriates. If someone leaves your country to go to some other country, they're an expatriate. If someone leaves the other country to come to your country, well, then we call them an immigrant. It's just a matter of perspective. Are you coming or going? Expatriates and immigrants are really the same thing. So when you look at expats from white countries, like a white guy who goes to live in South Korea or Mozambique, it's interesting to watch them in their new country. A few of them really like it. They prefer the way hospitality works in their new country. They prefer the manners of the new country. They prefer the etiquette of the new country. They prefer the language in the new country. They're more at home with the new country's conceptions of private and public, which is not the same everywhere. And they prefer what it means to be honest in their new country, because that's not the same everywhere. And that's important. You really want to have the same view of honesty as your neighbors. But that's not all expatriates, as far as I can tell. That's not even really that common, to love everything more in your new place than your old place. One of the more common results that I can see is the bitter expatriate. You'll search expat stuff online, and you'll come across it. You'll hear stories and see people posting about bitter expatriates. You'll see warnings to new expatriates to avoid the bitter expats. They're frustrated and resentful of their living situation. Now, why would people get resentful? I mean, is it really so different to live in one area than another? Well, yeah. Sometimes it's very hard to be happy in a different area. At first glance, different areas of the world can seem similar until you have to live there. Now, take honesty, Basically, everyone in the world would tell you that honesty is good, and basically everyone would also tell you that under certain circumstances, you might not be fully honest, something like a white lie. So superficially, hey, we all think it's good, but there are cases to hold back. We're basically all the same across the world, you might think. Well, let's use an example. Let's compare two places, Yokohama, a city in Japan, and Rapid City, South Dakota, United States. In Yokohama, and all of Japan, there's a concept of honne and tatemae. Honne is your true feelings. Tatemae is your face that you put on when you're in public. In Yokohama, it's not appropriate for you to let others around you know your sincere beliefs on, really important issues. If you had a BLM pin, or we're talking about important religious and political issues in public, you'd be engaging in inappropriate behavior. This has to do with the preservation of social harmony. It's hard to be harmonious if people are arguing about politics and airing out their deeply held beliefs in public. Now, in Rapid City, it's kind of a different place. In Rapid City, they might praise someone who unapologetically tells you how they feel. They might call him a straight shooter. People in Rapid City, or a lot of the United States, might enjoy a song like Aaron Tippin's "You've Got to Stand for Something."
You've got to stand for something, or you'll fall for anything.
In that song, he sings about his father. He says, everyone who knew him knew which side he'd be on. Later in the song, he goes on to sing, we might have been better off, or on a bigger house, if Daddy done more giving in, or a little more backing down. He's saying that his father, standing up for what he believed in, possibly made his family lose out on wealth and a better life. In this song, the father obviously didn't create harmony. He may have spoiled important relationships because of his outspokenness. He may have spoiled business relationships. He may have got passed up for promotions because he ticked off the wrong people. But he is celebrated for his outspokenness, even though it may have made his family sort of worse off, not spiritually, but materially. Now, that is a way different perspective than tatemae and preserving wa. This is not wa. If a Rapid City native who likes the idea of wearing his heart on his sleeve moves to Yokohama, there might be some friction. Some of the Japanese people will look at him and say, he's such a social bully. He's shoving his views into everyone's face, and we don't appreciate it. He's causing disorder, disharmony. They'll say that he can't read the air. Kuki yomanai. Meanwhile, our expat from Rapid City will look around, possibly, and say, wow, I've spent time with a lot of these people, the same coworkers every day. I've had a half dozen dinners with some of my neighbors, and they still won't tell me how they feel. They won't even be straight with me to my face. And he might start to resent tatemae. He'll view this facade as dishonest. Some people who genuinely hate his ideas might act like they don't hate his ideas, or they'll even pretend that they agree with him just to try and maintain some semblance of social harmony. They're trying to maintain wa. His frustration builds. He becomes a bitter expat. In his world, back in Rapid City, forthrightness is an integral part of honesty. But here in Japan, not so much. Now, both of these systems can work. Wa can work, or the heart on your sleeve, more Rapid City style can work, as long as you don't have some outsiders coming in and sabotaging it, right? Personally, I don't think I'd be quite happy with the Japanese approach, but if the Japanese are happy with it, I'm glad for them. I don't want the way they live to be taken away from them just because I don't think I would be a fan of it. If it's working for them, I'm glad. So in this nice town of Yokohama, there's a bitter man who hates it there. While Japanese children play in the park, he's a constant source of frustration to the locals, and generally a negative ball of energy in the community. In his own tiny way, he takes away wa from those people wherever he goes. And if you had enough expats like him, enough of these bitter outsider expats, they would reshape what it's like to live in Yokohama, and there would be no more wa for the Japanese people because of them.
I live my everyday life here. It's not like I wake up every morning and be like, oh yeah, I'm in Japan. I wake up every morning and be like, God damn, I'm in Japan.
All over in Asia and South America, Africa, you can find bitter expats. Many of them congregate with each other. They have their own hangouts where they spend their time together. A bunch of former Americans, a few former Brits and former French, all hanging out in one spot. They're sitting around in a country they hate. Yeah, they might work a job, contribute to the local economy, but they don't jive with the local population. They jive with each other much better, which is why they're always hanging out. These white people who have moved to non-white areas have built up resentment. Some of them have these, I'll hate to say it, very crummy, entitled worldviews. They will get frustrated with the fact that the people in the place they move to don't speak their language. Now, how could you be frustrated with the Japanese people in Japan speaking Japanese, right? How could you be frustrated that the Egyptian people in Egypt are speaking Egyptian Arabic and not the language you grew up with? It's their land, after all. I know, it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to be frustrated with people speaking their own language in their own land, but it's something that actually happens with bitter expats. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. Hey, white, bitter expat, you thought the grass would be greener. It wasn't. Come back. You don't belong there. But that reminds me, have you seen this news article? New Hampshire, 94% white, asks, how do you diversify a whole state? In this article, they tell us about Catalina. She's an expat from Colombia to the United States. Catalina is frustrated. Why? The article says part of it's because we speak English. She's frustrated because the people here are different from the people back in Colombia. In the article, they say New Hampshire is nearly all white, which poses a problem for immigrants like Catalina. Yeah, it's a problem for Catalina in the same way Yokohama being full of Japanese people has posed a problem to our Rapid City guy. Ooh, Japanese people in Japan. Wow, what a problem. Ilhan Omar says this is not going to be a country of white people.
This is not going to be the country of white people.
Imagine if our Rapid City guy took office in Japan and said that about them. Do you see what's happening here? We're all able to admit, we can all tell, that the Rapid City guy getting frustrated with Japan being full of Japanese people and being frustrated with Japanese people speaking Japanese, well, we can tell that he doesn't really belong there. Now, is he really that different from Ilhan Omar? He's a bitter expat from the U.S. She's a bitter expat from Somalia. Our Rapid City guy needs to leave Japan. Let them be who they are without some foreigner coming in to fight them about how they get to live their lives. Bitter expats need to go back home, and we have a ton of bitter expats in our countries.
You will get bloodshed on the streets of London.
It looks like her allegiance is to Mexico. I'm not sure why she's in this country.